David Lynch, the man who brought us such a surrealist nightmare of a film called Eraserhead. The man who brought us dancing, backwards talking dwarfs in Twin Peaks. And the man who brought us the psychopathic Frank Booth, the main inspiration for Heath Ledger's Joker in the film Blue Velvet. Brings us one of the most inspirational and moving films which, above all, is about human dignity. The Elephant Man. Sure, it's not the usual kind of film you would see David Lynch making. Hold it. This is, pardon my French, a damn fine film. I've seen a lot of films in my life, and this is one of the best. This, along with A Straight Story, is probably one of the most accessible of Lynch's films for those people who aren't a fan of his kind of films. This was based on the true story of Joseph Merrick, a man who is severely deformed and shunned by the public for being different. Although this is a completely different type of film, I don't think it is a million miles away from Eraserhead. They were both filmed in black and white, both feature characters who are disconnected from the rest of the world, both showing paranoia and isolation, and The Elephant Man has its own nightmare-like sequence, although this is more focused on John Merrick's torment throughout his entire life. The basic story is about a surgeon called Frederick Treves, played by Anthony Hopkins, who spots John Merrick in a freak show entitled The Elephant Man. Treves is taken aback by his condition and pays Merrick's cruel manager to take him to the hospital to be examined. The great thing about the start of this film is how you don't get to see very much of Merrick. You mainly just see him in the shadows or with the bag on his head as shown in the poster. I think that this was to make the audience surprised when he was finally unveiled, much like what the public's first reaction would be. Early on you're unsure if he could talk or even understand what people are saying. It really is a key moment of this film when he does start speaking, because from this point on you start to see the intelligent and human side of him, which goes against the public's perception of him. It's really interesting to see each character's first reaction to John Merrick, as some shriek in horror and some attempt to ignore the deformity and put a happy face to be polite to him, but you can tell that they are somewhat repulsed by him. In some of these conversations, it really is quite bittersweet to see his enthusiasm in simple things that everyone else takes for granted. John Merrick starts to become a famous figure, which makes Treves start to question his morality. Is he a good man, or is he just making the elephant in the room bigger, so to speak? It's really interesting because he compares himself to the manager who physically tortured and ridiculed him, along with the rest of the public. It's a fair argument, as instead of being a small attraction at the circus, his story has now circulated to a much wider range of people. David Lynch has really put together a truly remarkable film, with some fantastic performances and above all, a great story. It may sound a little strange to say this, but this film has amazing sound design. Not just the music, which was also amazing, but the way different sounds were emphasised to express different emotions in a number of different scenes. For example, there's a speeding train sound used when things get more intense, and the sound of churning heavy machinery, which I think sounds like a heartbeat. It's my interpretation that he feels so alone that he can hear his own heart beating, and the environment simply helps to express that. This is a monster movie, which really is not about the monster, but about how the perceptions of people can be deceiving and how each person is essentially the same. Sure, we all take different paths and views, but it all comes down to the choice between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to be afraid of the unusual and discriminate your fellow man, while the eyes of love see us all as equal. We are all one, we each have good in us, and we each have bad in us. Some have deformities on the outside and some on the inside, but the main thing is no one is perfect. It's just such a shame that some people refuse to accept this and therefore ridicule the poor and the helpless. We all make mistakes, we are all human, or as John Merrick puts it,
I am not an elephant! I am not an animal! I am a human being!
Thanks for listening.